everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today everyone that I follow and love is at Worldcon and I am super jealous. And I thought what better day to do a my collection of J.R. Tolkien things video. I love watching these so much. I think I've seen every video on people's Tolkien's collection. And it's just a fun video to watch because it's almost like everyone's personal relationship with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and just to see like the kinds of books and editions of them that people collect. So I'm going to show you what I have relating to Middle-earth, and I'm going to film half of it here at my parents' house, which is where I am right now, and half of it I'm going to film back in my apartment where I have several other books. So let's just get right into it. So the first thing I have is this Lord of the Rings board game. And the cool thing about this one is that, well, you kind of go through the journey to Middle-earth with cards and you come up against people you have to fight. But the cool things about this one is that you can play it alone. And I don't know if that makes me sound like a loser, but you can play it with another person or completely by yourself. And I find that kind of rare in board games. So it's really kind of cool. So that's the first thing that I have. The second thing is something I have not been able to complete. It is a 3D puzzle of the Citadels of Minas Tirith. So this is supposed to go, up. And I saw it and I was like, oh man, it's going to be as tall as me. But I was not able to do it. I don't know who has. I think my boss at work said that he was able to do it, but I cannot. Like, look at this. Okay. It is insanely intricate, and it has this kind of cardboard skeleton inside that you have to then put the 3D puzzle pieces on. And I've tried to do it, like, I think maybe 4 or 5 times and failed miserably. So that is to be continued, I guess. I have Boromir from the Fellowship of the Ring. Then I have Frodo from the Two Towers. And I mean, he could be Frodo from every one of them, but it says here the Two Towers. Then I also have Aragorn and Gandalf from The Hobbit. Now, I used to have Legolas as well, but I actually unpacked him, and you can probably see him right there. Because I wanted to do the whole Elf on the Shelf thing last Christmas, so here's the picture. So then I'm gonna first go to the books around Tolkien and discussing Tolkien. So first, there's these 2 volumes that are the J.R. Tolkien Companion and Guide by Christina Scullin Wayne Hammond. So this is kind of like a useful companion, especially if you plan on writing about J.R. Tolkien a lot. Another academic work is Exploring J.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit by Corey Olsen. I don't know if anyone knows, but Corey Olsen is kind of this Tolkien professor, and he pretty much mainly just teaches everything to do with Tolkien. And he has a podcast, and it's been very successful, I think, in the past. And they're kind of lectures, but he also has conversations with people about J.R. Tolkien and any topic, really. Like there's one with, the Shire and food, or the way currency works, Mithril, anything to do with any component of Middle-earth, he's kind of covered it. And then he came out with this book, Exploring The Hobbit. I'm pretty sure he's going to do one on Lord of the Rings. It's kind of like having a professor or a friend kind of guide you through the text and explaining some things to you that you might have not known. And it's actually kind of fun. So I really enjoy listening to him talk, and I love his lectures. And if you do find his podcast, it's a great companion to have, on a commute. Then I have Lord of the Rings and Philosophy. I'm kind of a sucker for these books. I think I have the one about Lost and about Lord of the Rings only, but there are so many out there. And, my understanding is that these are made by PhD students who are doing philosophy doctorate degrees, and they kind of want to get more publications out there, but they're exceptionally smart, and they bounce around some ideas. There's a lot in here about what it means to be happy, what it means to have a choice, mortality, just all of the possible things you can associate with different aspects of Middle-earth and the characters in Lord of the Rings. So this is another book. And I have The Shaping of Middle-earth which is kind of an addendum to The Lord of the Rings. And I have a Tolkien bestiary. And this is just, all of the animals and the flies and the landscape. It has some of the most beautiful illustrations. Some are black and white, but like this. And then some are much more intricate. This is more like an encyclopedia / dictionary with illustrations, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I think this as well has been redone several times. Then I have this book called Tolkien's Ring, but it uses all of the illustrations by Alan Lee. This I got from our local bookstore, but it's also signed by David Day. And this book kind of looks at all of the things that inspired Tolkien to write Lord of the Rings. So it looks at like the Volsunga saga, the Kalevala, which I covered in a previous video, and many other influences from Norse and from Norse mythology or from Old English poems. So this will like kind of cover all of the external things around Lord of the Rings. It's very beautiful, and the illustrations are just gorgeous. Then I have this J.R.R. Tolkien biography by Michael Coren. Now this as well is signed. I found it signed at a book sale. It's actually kind of a funny dedication because it's dedicated to this guy named David, and it says, "Who didn't come to listen to me." So I think his friend must have gotten this signed for him. This is like a very short biography. It's not very detailed or intricate. Okay, so another book that's kind of like a Tolkien help book is all of his letters. So this is actually one of the texts I have used the most in all of my work on Tolkien, because it kind of has his own words saying why he did certain things to his friends and family, and reading kind of like what he meant by a specific word or where he got it from. I mean, it's coming like straight out of his mouth. You know that it's correct, or that he meant to do that. And sometimes I know people don't care why authors do the things they do, but I do. So I found this to be very useful. All right, so now getting into the actual book. So first I have this copy of The Hobbit. Now this copy is supposed to be a remake of the first actual edition of The Hobbit. So this is kind of like the illustration done by Tolkien himself. And it has the back as well. Obviously it's not, but it's kind of falling apart. I just had to get this one. And this is the copy I was reading when I read The Hobbit. Yeah, it's really falling apart for me. Then I have this beautiful edition of The Hobbit. And this is the back. This is illustrated, but it doesn't have those glossy kinds of illustrations. It's very sort of in the print itself. It's kind of like a wooden cut print style, but then there are some scattered throughout that are glossy, like, Smaug itself. And I got this book from a teacher in high school, and he knew that I love Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth, so he gave me this copy of The Hobbit and a much cooler edition of Lord of the Rings, which you will see when I get back to my apartment. I only have 4 more books, so bear with me. Then I have Tolkien's Tales from the Perilous Realms, again illustrated by Alan Lee, but the illustrations are very simplistic. They're not overly colorful. It's not a very special or specific edition. So then I have this, which is like a collection of these 3 shorter works, and I think this is kind of like what the Treasury Collection has recently reprinted, which is why I don't have that. So you won't see some of the newer stuff in my collection because I feel like I have them. It's just now they've reprinted it in a newer edition. I'm not going to invest in absolutely every reprinting of every single Tolkien book. So this is some of the ones that I have from an older edition. And then I have The Children of Hurin. I have this one, which is the most recently purchased, and is The Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun. I think that's how you pronounce it. But this is probably the newest of the Tolkien books that I own, because I haven't really invested in the whole, the Beowulf or like Beren and Luthien. I just think that maybe if Tolkien didn't publish them himself, he maybe just didn't want them to be out there, and maybe he wouldn't consider them to be finished copies. So I will show you what I have at my apartment when I get there. So I'll see you in a bit. All right, so I'm back in my neighborhood now, and I didn't realize how many things I brought with me when I moved, but a lot. So the first one is obviously Lord of the Rings, the portable edition. Fun fact, Lord of the Rings was supposed to be one codex, but they divided it up in 3 volumes because they thought it would be too long. But Tolkien wrote it as like one cohesive, volume. So it makes sense for it to be in this format. So this is kind of the one that I read and I take with me, and it's my portable edition. Then, of course, I have a copy of the Silmarillion. I would recommend reading this first, but it's always more interesting looking back after you're already attached to the characters from the book. So yes, Silmarillion is another one. Okay, then I have the Tolkien Reader, Stories, Poems, and Essays by the author of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. This is like a very old, kind of vintagey book, but this is the one that has his notes on fairy stories, which are it's like one of the best essays ever. I highly recommend you read that one essay on fairy stories by Tolkien. I think it's online as well at this point. Here it is up close. Then I have Humphrey Carpenter's biography of Tolkien. It's kind of falling apart. I think I read this in like one sitting the first time, and I really do enjoy his life. There's something very peaceful about it, and I just love his biography in general. So this one by Humphrey Carpenter is the biography that I would say is the best in terms of Tolkien from what I've read. But if you are interested in kind of Tolkien and his group of friends, the Inklings, there is this book called The Fellowship, or The Literary Lives of the Inklings. And I know that these top 2 get all of the attention because, Narnia and Lord of the Rings are kind of big, but the other members of the Inklings are exceptional scholars and they've contributed a lot. It's worth looking at the Inklings as a group. Now, moment of truth, I have not read this cover to cover. I have only looked at parts of it, but I think I do want to invest the time in the near future. The coolest thing I have, I think, is this beauty of Lord of the Rings. Now, this is from the same teacher who gave me the really cool copy of The Hobbit, and it looks absolutely glorious. Marble and pages, just beautiful. And at the back here, it has this like super intricate map of Middle Earth. I don't want to break it, but it's pretty simple, but it's like red and it looks really cool. But yes, this edition, I think it's called the Deluxe, this company, and it's the collector's edition. So I'm super grateful for this because it's so beautiful. It's just one of those things that it's like really nice to have, but not very practical in terms of actual reading. And I don't want to mark it up or damage it in any way, but I really cherish that copy. And I got really into Elvish for a while, and I got this copy of A Gateway to Sindarin. And it really goes into the details of the language and how it works with like reflexes and so on, mutations, and kind of the history of the language itself. It borrows from a lot of Tolkien's own notes on how he created Elvish, and a lot of it is built on the way Finnish and Old English work. If you are interested in languages and you kind of want to dive into a fictional one, I mean, obviously I'm going to recommend this one as opposed to something like Klingon, but I mean, to each his own. Like if you are into Klingon, then definitely invest in that one. But for me, it's like Elvish is number 1. So then I got this Hobbit poster collection. It's sort of 6 of the illustrations by Alan Lee of The Hobbit. So there's I don't even know how to show you properly. Maybe I'll just take them out. But basically, there's one with the Shire, like this. And you can see Bilbo on his front porch. And it's just so beautiful. And I think in the future, I'm going to try to at least frame some of these and maybe put them up. We'll see. But here's Smaug. Ugh, I love him so much. It's so great. And the illustrations are just so vintagey, but also like representative of like everything fantasy. It's just perfect. So I love these so much. Now the last thing I will show you is actually hanging up on my bedroom wall, and it's this map of Middle Earth. It's kind of like shiny and has this golden foliage alongside of it, so you can't really see it properly because of the glare. So that was it. Those were all my Tolkien things, and I obviously have the DVDs for Lord of the Rings. I don't think I have the Hobbit ones. Maybe I should in the future, but for now I don't have them. But I do have the Lord of the Rings DVDs. So thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry if this is a longish video. Again, I just really love watching other people's Tolkien collections, so I thought this would be a fun one to make. So thanks again, and I'll see you soon in my next video.